In the heart of the forgotten village of Umudu, where cracked mud roads twisted like scars and trees stood like tired old men, lived a girl no one wanted. Her name was In. She was 19, barefoot, beautiful, and burdened. Her father had died mysteriously years ago, and since then, her life had become a quiet river of sorrow. She lived in a small, broken hut with her stepmother, Mama Uduak, a sharp-tongued woman who spat venom with every glance. To the villagers, In was nothing but a shadow. To her stepmother, she was free labor with no voice. Each morning, before the roosters crowed, In would fetch water with a cracked clay pot, sweep the compound, and cook with the last remains of whatever Mama Uduak left behind. Her dress, a faded pink Ankara wrapper, barely clung to her body. Children laughed at her. Adults whispered behind her back. The world moved around her, but never with her. She only had one friend, silence. And silence, though loyal, was cold. Yet in her eyes, there was something strange. A hidden fire. As though her soul remembered a secret even her mind did not. That day had started like every other. The sun beat hard. Hunger clung to her ribs. She was sent to the stream to fetch water but found herself sitting by the rocks, her eyes lost in the dancing currents. Her stomach growled, but she had grown used to the sound. As she stood to return, she heard a noise. A cough, weak, desperate. She turned and saw him. A beggar, old and bent, lying on the dusty path beside the bush. His clothes were torn, his skin covered in wounds, and his lips, cracked like dry ground, moved slowly. "Please, water," the man whispered. She hesitated. In her hand was all the water she had fetched for her stepmother. If she gave it to him, she would be beaten. But then she remembered her father's words, soft, almost forgotten, "True strength is in kindness, especially when it costs you." Without another thought, he knelt beside the man, tilted the pot, and let him drink. He coughed, gasped, then looked into her eyes, and that moment froze time. His pupils shimmered like they held galaxies. "Thank you, daughter of light," he said. "Those who feed the forgotten, awaken the truth." She blinked, unsure of what she had just heard. But when she looked again, his eyes were closed. He had fallen asleep. In gently placed her only piece of bread beside him and stood up slowly. Her heart pounded. Something about that encounter didn't feel normal. As she walked back home with an empty pot and no food, she braced for her stepmother's anger. But deep inside her chest, something had shifted. It was as if an ancient door had creaked open within her, and a soft wind had begun to whisper her name. As expected, Mama Uduak raged. Slaps. Insults. Kicks. In didn't cry. Not this time. While she swept the compound that night under the dim moonlight, she noticed something strange in her pocket, a smooth, warm stone, glowing faintly. Her eyes widened. She hadn't placed anything there. She looked around, but no one was near. The village night was quiet, too quiet. Crickets refused to chirp. Frogs hid. The air felt heavy. A strange breeze blew. She held the stone tightly and looked up at the moon. Something was coming. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid. That night, In tossed and turned on her bamboo mat, her bones aching from the day's beatings. But sleep refused to come easily. When it finally did, it pulled her into a place that felt older than time. She stood in a golden forest. The trees glowed, not with fire, but with something gentler, ancient. The leaves whispered her name in languages she didn't understand. A stream nearby sang a melody her soul somehow recognized. In the distance, she saw the old beggar from the road. He stood tall now, no longer sick. He smiled faintly and pointed toward a cave hidden behind vines. Then she woke up, sweating, shaking, and breathless. The glowing stone was still in her pocket. At first, she thought it was just a dream. A strange one, yes, but a dream nonetheless. But things began to change. Chickens scattered whenever she walked by. The village dog stopped barking and whimpered instead. The air around her felt different, charged. Children who once mocked her now avoided her completely. Mama Uduak's cruelty increased too. She tore In's clothes in anger one morning and screamed at her, "You bring spirits into my house, useless girl. Maybe your real mother was a witch." In said nothing, but inside, something stirred. A quiet defiance. By the third day, villagers began to whisper. She walks alone but talks in her sleep. She carries something glowing in her wrapper. Did you see how the rain fell only where she stood yesterday? A woman claimed that In passed by her dry farmland, and within hours, the ground grew moist. Another swore she saw a bird land on In's shoulder and speak in human voice. Mama Uduak, terrified but stubborn, called for the elders. "This girl," she said, "is cursed. Either we cast her out or we all suffer." That evening, a crowd gathered in the square. In was dragged forward, her cheeks swollen from slaps, her wrapper half torn. The elders stood in a circle, holding carved staffs and muttering prayers. The villagers shouted, "Let her confess. Let her burn the stone. She's a danger to us." In said nothing. She was tired. But just as the head elder raised his staff, ready to pronounce her banishment, a sudden crack of thunder split the sky. A masked man stepped forward from the edge of the crowd, tall, silent, dressed in deep red and black robes. The villagers moved back in fear. No one had seen him before. His presence was thick, heavy like smoke but calm like still water. He raised his hand, and everyone fell silent. "She is not cursed," he said, his voice like thunder buried in honey. "She is the daughter of light. And you have fed her to wolves." No one spoke. Then, in front of the entire village, the man turned to In and knelt. "You passed the test," he said, loud enough for all to hear. "And now, your true journey begins." The clouds rumbled above them. A strange wind circled the crowd. Some villagers fell to their knees. Mama Uduak fainted. The glowing stone in In's hand pulsed like a heartbeat. The masked man stood, pointed toward the eastern forest, and said, "Follow the wind. There, you'll find your name." Then he vanished, like smoke in sunlight. The villagers stood frozen. In stood alone. But for the first time in her life, she didn't feel alone. The morning after the masked man vanished, the village was silent. Too silent. People peeked through their windows. No children played. Even the wind dared not blow. But In walked toward the eastern forest with bare feet, her heart pounding like the drums during the village festival. In her hand, she clutched the glowing stone, now warm and pulsing, like it had a heartbeat of its own. She didn't know why she wasn't scared. Maybe she had already suffered too much to fear anything else. Maybe something inside her had finally awakened. She stepped past the first tree. The forest was thick and ancient, its trees gnawed like the hands of old prophets. Shadows danced where sunlight should have reached. Birds watched her in silence. She followed the path the wind seemed to carve before her, leaves moving, branches parting, until she reached a giant Iroko tree. At its base, half buried under moss and dirt, was a door. Not one made by men. This one looked like it had grown from the earth itself. Her stone pulsed faster as she approached. With trembling hands, she touched the center, and the door opened on its own. Behind it was a narrow passage lit by fireflies. The walls whispered stories as she passed. Names, dates, voices of people she never knew, yet somehow remembered. At the end of the tunnel stood a shrine carved entirely from black stone. And in front of it, stood the masked man. "I knew you would come," he said, without turning. But you must know what you carry before you decide to keep it. In stepped forward. I don't understand. He turned to her. This time, he removed his mask. It was the beggar. Clean. Strong. Glowing with a light that didn't come from the sun. His eyes still held galaxies. I tested you, in. Not because I wanted to, but because the gods demanded it. You are the last daughter of the house of Onwachi, a royal bloodline curse for betraying the spirit of kindness generations ago. In stumbled back. My father was a prince, poisoned by your stepmother's family. You were hidden as a baby and raised as a servant to protect you from those who wanted your line erased. In's chest heaved. The room felt like it was spinning. All this time, I was royalty. Not just royalty, he said. You are the key. The only one who can break the curse on this land. The famine. The drought. The darkness in the hearts of the people. It is all tied to your bloodline. But, he paused. There is a price. In swallowed hard. What price? You must enter the cave of echoes, the place where the curse began. There, you will face your blood, your pain, your fears. And you must choose between justice or mercy. The fireflies dimmed. The ground trembled slightly. And if I fail, she whispered, then the curse remains for 1,000 more years. And the people, even those who hurt you, will suffer. She closed her eyes. Flashes of Mama Uduak slaps. Of going to bed hungry. Of children spitting on her. Of lonely nights whispering her father's name. Then she opened them. I'll go, she said. The beggar smiled. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Then may the spirits walk with you. And may your heart remain whole. He pointed behind the shrine, where a narrow path disappeared into darkness. The entrance to the cave of echoes. In looked at it, her stone glowing bright in her hand. And with a deep breath, she stepped forward, into the dark. The moment In stepped into the cave of echoes, the stone in her hand flickered, then went dim. The entrance closed behind her like a heartbeat slamming shut. Pitch black swallowed her. The air was cold and damp, but it wasn't the type of cold that touched skin, it reached into bone and soul. Her bare feet brushed against smooth stone, and every step echoed with a sound that didn't belong to her. It sounded like footsteps behind her. But whenever she turned, there was nothing. Still, she walked. Then came the whispers. They started as a breeze. Then they became words. You are nothing. You were never loved. You will die forgotten. The cave repeated every insult she'd ever heard. Mama Uduak's voice. The mocking voices of children. Even her own voice, doubting herself. In covered her ears and cried, but the whispers only grew louder, swelling like a storm in her head. Until suddenly, silence. She looked up and saw a faint blue light. She followed it, and what she saw next shattered her. It was her father. Or what looked like him, kneeling beside a stone altar. He turned to her, his face gentle, his eyes full of sorrow. In, he said. You must forgive them. Tears filled her eyes. But they hurt me. I know. And your pain is valid. But carrying it any longer will chain you like it chained me. They thought hurting you would destroy your light, but it only revealed it. Behind her father, a spirit rose, her mother. Young, radiant, her face full of grace and fire. My child, her mother whispered, you were never abandoned. We washed. We wept. We prayed you would endure long enough to choose mercy. In fell to her knees. I don't know how to forgive them, she cried. Her mother knelt and placed a hand on her heart. Then forgive yourself first. For believing their lies. For shrinking your light. For forgetting you are divine. Suddenly, the cave shook. A voice thundered, "Choose your offering." 2 doors appeared in front of her. One glowed red, pulsing with power and revenge. The stone in her hand reignited, burning bright gold. The spirits of her parents smiled. The walls of the cave began to hum. And then, the cave opened. She was outside, standing in the middle of the village square. The villagers gathered, their mouths open. Crops that had died long ago began to rise from the earth. Rain fell for the first time in 5 years. The elders collapsed in tears. The cursed wind that had hung over Umudu was gone. Mama Uduak crawled toward her on her knees. "In, please, forgive me." In looked at her, really looked. And for the first time, she saw not a monster, but a broken woman made cruel by fear. She said nothing. She simply reached out her hand and lifted her. Years passed. The kingdom flourished under Queen In's rule. She brought peace, fairness, and light. Statues were raised in her name. But one statue remained hidden deep in the forest, a small one, carved with her own hands, of a beggar with a cracked pot. Because what no one ever knew was this: the beggar never existed. He was not a man, not a spirit, but a memory left behind by her father, a part of his soul sealed in time by ancient magic to guide her when she would be most forgotten. He was the last gift from a father to his daughter. And whenever the moon shone just right over the royal palace, Im would sit by her window, hold the stone in her hand, and whisper, "I remember."